I'm sorry I couldn't make it last. All right, let's give a little bit time for people to join. As I said, first 15 minutes, we are going to treat questions and we are going to allow people to slowly join in. We have a slightly longer session today. So the plan is that we will cover the remaining of chapter 3 and we'll jump into chapter 4. Generally, we meet always around 2 o'clock. So today, maybe in the morning, the attendance is it generally low in the morning sessions? It's not really morning, it's noon.
In last session, we have around 25 people, so I think they may be
Okay.
joining.
Okay. Okay. People might be intimidated. आज तो लंबा session है बाप रे बाप. Can you guys hear me clearly? Is there any background noise? Do I need to wear my headphones? Okay.
Actually, Onam is also being celebrated in many parts in
Oh,
Kerala today.
yes. Today is Onam, right? Oh, yes, yes. I saw in the morning today, my calendar was giving me an auto because I have selected Indian holidays in it. So it was giving me an auto reminder that today is a festival. How many of you are celebrating Onam? Is anybody celebrating Onam among us? Most of them, those who are definitely not on this call. Recording सुन लेंगे. क्या करना है जाके? Recording सुन लेंगे. Joy of electronic medium. हमारे टाइम पे पढ़ाई के टाइम पे if you miss a lecture you will have to first of all depend upon ugly notes of other people आधा जो पढ़ा नहीं जा रहा है and then you are kicking yourself that late क्यों हो गई मिस कर दिया ना कैमरा था ना कुछ और था you have to just write like crazy in your notebook.
So I remember one incident.
हाँ,
In 10th, we had this classes which was over and above the school, and I
हाँ,
missed one of the exams in the classes, and
हाँ.
we had to get.
All right, let's show you the presentation screen to jog your memory. We are jumping into module number 3.2. And there is a mini recap, which we will do. I haven't shared my screen, so nobody panic. I haven't put it on presentation mode yet. All right, now I'm going into the Zoom screen. Share screen. Here you go. And share. Can you guys see the screen now?
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent.
That's fine.
Thank you. Okay, let's get down to it. What did we talk about last time? Let's look at it. We spoke about skilled workforce, need for a skilled workforce, what we meant by upskilling, the need for upskilling, generational viewpoint about learning. Okay. And then we stopped at aspects of upskilling, where we talked about what CEOs felt were the top needs. And we also said that some of the statistics that we have quoted are now slowly and steadily getting out of date. And then we were also able to join or reconnect the 6 digital competencies or competencies for the future that will be created because of the 7 disruptors. So when you look at the book, you will have everything there. So nobody needs to remember anything. The reason why I'm bringing these points forward is just to have some continuity and so that you guys can, swim out, pull out those memories that you had when we had the conversation. Those who missed it are listening it to the first time. Do not worry. You will have the recording. You can listen to it. And also you have enough detailed material to go through it. Okay. Today, what are the few things we'll cover? we'll cover dynamics of upskilling, upskilling in action. This is something that will help you in your setting up of structures, and it will also be very handy for a typical examination evaluation point of view. See, the truth of the situation is this is a course we will all have to give an exam at the end. So these are some pointers, or what should I say? In our time, we had teachers who in the last 2 weeks before the exams would give what? Important questions. So that would be, in a way, a hint that these are few questions that you can expect in the exam. Yeah. So dynamics of upskilling, upskilling in action, these are very tangible, something that you can remember. And I would say some of it requires some memory exercise, because these are things that you can lift and shift from your course into real life with minor modifications. Then there is this, I won't call it philosophical, but it's more directional and discussion-based conversation on balancing learning and working. And then there's some additional reading material. This is not something that we'll cover in all the time that we have today. There's another module that we'll begin, which is very interesting, but we'll get to it after a break. So we'll take our time, we'll take a mini 10-minute break, and then we'll go back into the module, because 3 hours together can be a little overwhelming. All right? Okay. So any questions? I'm going to pause for a minute, stop the share. Any questions, any doubts, any continuities, challenges, or stress?
No, no.
Everybody okay?
No.
I just want to make sure nobody's falling asleep. All right. I'm going to close my WhatsApp web because it keeps making clunky noises and that gets recorded. So let's close that and let's go back to our screen sharing. Okay. So now we are going to straight away jump into what we know as dynamics of upskilling. So when I say the word dynamics, what jumps to your mind? And those of you who are busy reading the text on the screen, you are welcome to do so. I'm going to stay quiet for a few seconds for all of you to read the sentence. But when we say dynamics of upskilling, without reading this, what
Moving,
comes to your mind?
moving, continuously
Moving.
moving,
Yeah, yeah. Evolving, moving, agile,
transforming. Yeah.
transforming. Exactly. These are some words that come to the mind the moment you hear the word dynamics, because that is how we have programmed our mind. And also, it is one of the things that is gifted through our physics classes, etc. Dynamics. Okay. In fact, there's fluid dynamics, there's thermodynamics. Engineers would hear me. People who've done physics would hear me. These are words that are gift of science. So if we had to associate the not so exact science of learning to some shape and form to create neural pathways for people who do not take this to be an exact science and to be able to relate to it, that how do these people who call themselves learning experts, how do they design these programs? Easy है, copy paste कर दो इधर उधर से कुछ कुछ मटेरियल इकट्ठा कर दो, हो जाता है. ट्रेनिंग में क्या है, अपस्किलिंग में क्या है, बड़ा इजी है. For those people, to give them a flavor of what really goes at the back end when we design an upskilling program, this can be a great conversation to be had. One of the things that I want to take a pause and talk to you about is many of the concepts here. For example, even in our first module, there were words like digitalization, which is not used every day. Most of the people merge all the concepts of digitization, ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन से लेके एनालॉग डिजिटल सारा कुछ डिजिटाइजेशन में डाल दे. People are not aware of the subtleties of various terms that we use as learning experts. To hold our respect and to be able to have an intelligent conversation is crucial for people to see your value. So many of the things that you will learn in this course is designed for you to hold an intelligent conversation for people who truly understand the art and science of learning. It can be seminars, it can be talking to bosses, it can be talking to colleagues, it can be talking in communities, your same fraternity, making a comment on LinkedIn. Many of the things you might not have to write an exam for, you might not have to even memorize. But if you are immersing yourself in this subject, you will be an intelligent orator and you will have the understanding that many people who claim they understand learning and development actually don't know. And you will be able to spot that difference. There are two advantages. First of all, you can brag a little bit, but if you're like me, you will listen and you will gauge the understanding of other people, and you will be able to find out how many people really know about what learning and development is and how many people are pretending. So according to that, then you can change the tone of your conversation. Sometimes having knowledge about the depth of knowledge other people have is great for your strategy, because that also means that you can get away with some things because they don't even know. Okay. I'm kidding, guys. Don't quote me on this. But my idea is that sometimes when you know what the weak spots of the person whom you're talking to are, for example, operational folks do not understand as much of learning and development and the science of it. So you can propose some bold solutions if you're able to inspire trust. And where does trust come from? Your ability to showcase, one, you add value, two, you have the knowledge. And three, nowadays it has become even more important, is that I know what is going on in the industry. I know the hot and happening in the world. So I can help you. You can trust me. That is the first step for people to listen to your proposal, pay attention to you, and even take you seriously. Because sometimes in the changing dynamic, there is a high stress, high, what should I say, bias associated with functions that only generate money and the other functions which are not revenue generating to be sidelined and be replaced by machines or replaced by de-skilling initiatives, right? And that's my philosophical spiel today. I will try and limit it because I tend to go in a tangent which can be a little philosophical at times. So let's come back to the screen and let's see, really, for academic purposes, what would you want to call dynamics of upskilling? To create, what is the dynamics of upskilling? The idea is to create a productive, multi-generational workforce. Now, see, you see this? This is clever because we are trying to mold chapter 2 along with chapter 3 so that you don't miss continuity. To create a productive multi-generational workforce, organizations need to provide training, employees need when they need it, and in a way that will maximize their learning and transfer to the job, which also means knowledge transfer. It also means that if somebody gets promoted, the person's job has to be taken by someone else. So that is also a part of dynamics of upskilling. In the past few years, brain science research has identified several strategies and practices that allow for significant improvements in training effectiveness, especially when taking generational differences into account. So why are we stressing on the factor of generational differences? It is important to acknowledge and understand and not sideline or underestimate the importance of diversity in a classroom. And here we are talking about generational, but then in addition to that, you will also see tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities, the Hindi speaking people, English speaking people. And if some of you are fortunate enough to have worked in a very diverse environment, you will recognize the ground level challenges it presents. For example, in between when I couldn't attend the session with you guys, I had to go to a tier 2 city. I had to go to Jodhpur. And I also had to, among other things, I had to give a lecture at one of the educational institutes there. And what I realized is that I actually had to, and this is the blessing because I've been born and brought up in Delhi. I could speak in Hindi all the things that I was supposed to speak about because I realized after the first 3 or 4 sentences that everything in front of me was either half understood or people were completely blank. Not that they do not understand English, but studying in English, conversing in English, and understanding something which is like a motivational talk, and it was a suicide awareness, signs of suicide awareness talk. It's a very different level. So I had to completely change the way I had to talk, and I had to use very, very, I won't say pure Hindi, but pretty much very, very a native Hindi to be able to communicate. Now, what happened by the end of the conversation is people were not happy, they were ecstatic. And many of them said, there are so many people who come from other metro cities and they have all good intentions and they come and talk to us a lot, but we are not able to grasp it. We grasp it after hearing and rehearing it 6 or 7 times because they speak English fluently and not everybody understands it that well. So we have to listen and re-listen. So this is true also for generations. For example, today my dad was stubborn in the morning to respond to an SBI auto notification email saying that last time मैंने इसका जवाब दिया था और बिल्कुल करते हैं बैंक इसको पढ़ते हैं. And I'm saying that they do not read an autoresponder email, but he stuck to his guns and I couldn't convince him by the end. He said, then why is a reply button coming at the bottom of the email? I said, because that's Gmail, that's not SBI, but he didn't believe it. He stuck to his guns. That's generational learning. That much of a difference we might have to cater to, especially in public sector, in government sector, and no disrespect. And there are people who are from a different generation. So that is why the dynamics is worth considering. Sometimes a dynamics of upskilling also gets influenced by the gender diversity in the group, the ethical diversity in the group, the community in the group. So be sensitive as learning experts that these aspects will have a difference of your delivery, of your program design, of your program evaluation, and also the experience, the learning experience. So this is more of a guidance for you as a learning expert to look at this important factor while you are putting in your upskilling program or your digital transformation strategy in place. Okay. Now, we are going to talk about what is the first thing that goes into creating an amazing learning experience. Everything that is personalized is special. It gives the people the confidence that this is special for me, I am important, and there are people and resources and time in play that is making this valuable for me so that I can add value not only to the resume, but also after this training, I can add value to my organization, right? So that is where we talk about personalizing the learning experience, okay? So this is the first element of dynamics of upskilling. Now, most of you would understand what personalizing the learning experience is. And we did spend some time on the last slide talking about what are the few things we can do to personalize. But what will be the identifying parameter? Because what we spoke about is very wide, and to be able to do all of that at one go can be very difficult. So we are saying that personalization considers certain things. What are the certain things? One, cognitive style. How does the learner learn? Okay. And it can be a mix of personal preference of learning and also what generation you belong to. So it is about providing the appropriate learning that maximizes the retention of the knowledge and application on the job. Okay, so we are going to delve into something which most of you would already be aware of, looking at the experience in this group, cognitive learning styles. And then we are going to talk about what are the few benefits of being able to identify the cognitive learning styles. Now, I do not think that you would like me to blabber and read the whole slide for you. So like I said in the last slide, I'm going to be quiet for a few, I think for 10-15 seconds for all of you to quickly sense and read through the material that is on the screen, which talks about the various kind of cognitive learning styles. Otherwise, I would be talking, you guys would be trying to read, and that will create confusion. So let me be quiet for a few seconds, go through the material, and then we are going to talk a little bit about it, or maybe we'll just fast pace it in case all of you are already aware of it and you don't have any questions. So it's quiet time for me. I'm going to be quiet and let you read. Everybody good?
Yes, madam.
Anybody who is trying to connect this to MBTI? If you know what MBTI is, I'm hoping some of you know. If you know this, if you don't know this, then also it's okay. So let's ask you this question. Extroversion and introversion. Who wants to take a stab off, other than what's written here, a live example of what an extrovert is and what an introvert is, and how extroversion and introversion comes into play? Anybody wants to make any comments? In fact, let's not even go line by line. Any thoughts, comments, feedback on these cognitive learning styles? And have you encountered them, or are you hearing it for the first time?
There are the persons, there are the learners who learn by sharing their thoughts. Whatever you share, they come forward and they start discussing on the same. They are putting their views that how they had applied. Because when you are applying, when you are doing the learning for the adult peoples,
Uh-huh.
they are also having some experience. So they try
Hmm.
to say that, yes, sir, I had did this, that,
Yes.
and this
Hmm.
was my experience.
Hmm.
There are certain people who in the group you will find who are not speaking anything. They are just keeping quiet. They are making their own, means they are relating the things. And once you tell them, or once you call them, they come
Hmm.
out with some of the insights which others are not, means come. Then you
Yes.
come to know that yes, he's a introvert people who is learning by just not speaking, but relating his thought, and he is making
Yeah.
conclusion out of that.
And many people will brand them as stupid or slow,
Yeah,
or dumb. But then later on, they will say one sentence, you're like, oh my God, this guy was listening. And he's
correct,
quite
ma'am.
intelligent, actually. It's a pleasant surprise many of us get. And all of us are guilty of, not considering people who are not speaking enough to be intelligent learners. So you can be pleasantly surprised. Those are typically introverts. That's how they learn. Then there is sensing and intuition, where it is actually why I mentioned the word MBTI. It's actually for those people who want to know. It is Meyer-Briggs psychometric tool, which is very famous. And at one point in time, it used to be, it is no longer now, but it used to be a basis for hiring people in various kind of teams, because we required a mixed bag of people in a group. So it is a psychometric test, which is given out, used to be given out in talent acquisition earlier. Now it's not. Now there are different other techniques that is used. There's DISC and there are other things also. If we get some time, maybe one day we can talk about them. But these styles are also identified through that questionnaire. Now, how many people, just give me a show of hands or just say me a yes, no. How many people understand what a psychometric test is?
Yes, understand.
Okay, one, two.
Ah.
Nice, nice. People are raising hands. Very nice. So it's not completely a shot in the dark. A psychometric test is designed to ask you questions which are repetitive in style, which tries to invade your mind palace. Your mind creates this image about who you are, okay, through the various layers of personality. These questions are designed to attack those walls and get to the real you by asking similar questions in different ways. So that's why sometimes those questions can be very irritating. एक तो yes no पूछते रहते हैं, फिर पूछते हैं strongly agree, strongly disagree, strongly agree, strongly disagree. The idea, if you're getting confused, that's the idea, to confuse you so that the real you can say instead of that image. For example, if you work long hours at office, you are a good employee. If you leave after your boss leaves, you're a good employee, etc. etc. So there's belief systems that we all have, but that's not the real you. You have cultivated that over years without even knowing that you have cultivated it, and that has shrouded your real personality. So
And
psychometric test is
this
typically, yeah, yeah.
this
Go
test
ahead.
is actually performed especially into the army. They are when
Yes,
they are for the officers, when they are
yes,
recruiting in the
yes,
interviews, they are using a lot of psychometric tests, and
yeah.
one of them is the storytelling. They are showing the picture.
Storytelling. Yeah.
They
Observation
see that
skills. Observation
observation
skills.
skills,
So
and
आज
then
हम थोड़ा सा
how you are
fun से,
reacting in
हाँ,
certain situations. They give you the situations, and then they ask,
yes, scenarios.
and
Yeah,
they will not give you much time to think of.
yeah.
Just within a second, you have to write. Every 30
Big,
seconds, there will be a new word onto the screen, and you have to write. that what is your
Because
first thought?
mental synapses and neural pathways are extremely important when it comes to army, military, all these kind of backgrounds. So it has a special place. And that's why other people, we have the luxury of people still not responding at that speed. But, and when the country's defense is at question, then people have to be at a different synaptic response level. Okay. Are you guys getting the background noise? Anybody? Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
Excellent.
No,
I love HP. I love HP. Great. Okay. Now we are talking about thinking and feeling. Okay. Who can tell me the difference between thinking and feeling? ये पढ़ के मत बताओ. मुझे बताओ truly thinking और feeling में क्या फर्क है?
I think thinking is like you have the facts in front of you and then you make a decision. And feeling is like, matlab thinking is more like you go into the nitty-gritties of everything and then you make a decision based, and it's more on the logical part of it. And feeling is like taking it as a big picture. And then
हाँ.
you feel that, okay, this is what I think, or I feel that this should be, the outcome, or this is how the person it is, whatever you're talking about at that moment of time.
Okay.
फीलिंग
Great
में मैम ऐसा
response.
होता है कि जैसे मैंने कुछ किया है, इट इज माय फीलिंग एंड आई शुड डू लाइक दैट. और थिंकिंग में वी थिंक ऑन टू द डेटा, लाइक शिवली हैज ऑलरेडी सेड दैट वी थिंक कि हाँ ऐसा करेंगे तो ये होगा, इसके ये
Hmm.
दीज आर द प्रोस एंड कॉन्स. तो फीलिंग
Hmm.
में जस्ट आई हैड डिड लास्ट टाइम दिस एंड आई हैव गॉट दैट, तो आई शुड डू इट.
एक थैंक यू एंड ग्रेट. एक बहुत अच्छा मापदंड है. पता है क्या है? ऑब्जेक्टिव एंड सब्जेक्ट. एक है ट्रूथ और एक है माई ट्रूथ. फीलिंग इज माई ट्रूथ. गर्म पानी कितना गर्म है? ये मेरे लिए बहुत गर्म है, तुम्हारे लिए एकदम सही है, किसी और के लिए एकदम ठंडा है. इट इज ऑब्जेक्टिव. It is feeling, and it varies from body to body. If you want to remember it, feeling. Okay. So if somebody has had a PTSD or some kind of a trauma, in a very absolutely normal situation, the person might hyperventilate. And the other person, isko kya ho gaya? Ye to kuch bhi nahi hai. Whereas in a very different situation, which is very normal to very abnormal to us, another person might be absolutely normal. Serial killers, they find it normal, you know, cutting a human being, big deal. You cut meat, you cut a human being. So generally, feelings are your own truths. Okay. So your own truth that you cultivate through experiences, through culture, through your exposure, it's subject. Thinking is generally the sun rises every day. The earth is spinning on its axis. Things like those which are true. Those truths get, so mainly when you talk about thinking, it is primarily your functionality of the brain, which collects the logic, the data, which are generally either universal truths or your truth at that point in time, which can be a factor of feeling also. But then 80 to 90% of it is absolutely objective, less of subjective. That is how you can make a difference. So, okay, question. As a learning expert, where should you, as a learning expert, function from? ये क्वेश्चन सिलेबस से बाहर है. It's just a discussion question. As a learning expert, where should someone function from?
So we should have a mixture of both.
Smart
we
answer.
have we have to tell the objective with considering the feeling of the learners. I
Okay.
am telling something, and my learner is not able to correlate or not able to understand, so it is useless for him. Like sometimes some professors are giving so many things, और वो एक छोटा सा कोई आता है वो समझाता है, and all the students says, अरे यार आपने तो इतना मेरा जो
सिंपल कर दिया.
डिफिकल्टी था you had solved it within
हाँ.
minutes. So you have to understand the feeling of the participant, as well as you have to keep the objectivity, keeping objectivity considering the feeling of the learners. That should be a mixture of a trainer.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else wants to take a stab? There is no right or wrong answer. बताओ भाई, opinions होने चाहिए. This is an elite group.
So I will go.
बोलो विपिन.
तो कहा जाता है ना, इट्स नॉट व्हाट यू टेल, इट्स हाउ यू टेल इज इम्पोर्टेंट।
हाँ.
तो व्हाट यू टेल जो आएगा वो थिंकिंग में आएगा, हाउ यू
Hmm.
टेल विल कम इनटू फीलिंग्स में आएगा। तो
Hmm.
कनेक्टिविटी कनेक्ट करना पड़ता है हमको,
Hmm.
बोथ द थिंग्स।
Hmm. Okay. Yes,
Um,
Ganesh.
Yeah, I think I had just written an example. Like
Yeah.
thinking is, if I think about a flower,
Hmm.
then thinking will show me only the appearance or the
Yes.
colors of the flower. But
Yes,
when I
exactly.
feel it, then I will
The
feel
smell,
the smell or
senses.
fragrance.
Yes.
And I think the most important is that feeling. Because when we
Okay.
think about the flower, I think the
Mm-hmm.
more than the appearance, the feeling is
The
more
smell
important or
comes
is
to you.
famous. Yeah.
Yes, the smell comes to you.
So in
And
the
to
little
some,
bit,
to some, it might be very pleasing, but for some
yes,
bodies, it will be like, "Baap re, ye bahut zyada ho raha hai." You know, some people might find that. And for some
extraordinary.
people, is it, please take the flower out, I'm getting an allergy. So it's all subjective. Bodies hook on to that pheromones in a very different way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to hold that comment, which you said feeling is most important. So let's hold on to that thought. Okay. And then we'll talk about it, because even though it's sounding like a very subjective conversation, I'm trying to go somewhere. Jugal, go. Oh,
That is
nice.
one very
When you
good.
deal, you need to feel. Kya baat hai. Wow, wow,
Yeah,
wow, wow.
that is what I'm saying now. When you need to deal, you need to feel. So for the proper connectivity, you need to feel the
Hmm.
audience.
Of course, of course. So, guys, I'm driving a point which is going to take me to another acronym or jargon in the learning world. कितने लोगों को Kirkpatrick पता है यहाँ पे? How many people know Kirkpatrick?
We have gone through that in Sem 1 only.
Oh, you have. Excellent.
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you, guys. So now do you see why I'm talking about the ideal mix? And that is what Abhishek said. That's why he said it's a smart answer. Anything which cannot be measured becomes very difficult to set. So while the feeling is extremely important as a human resource person, as a learning person, as anybody who works with people, it is important to measure your success. MOS, measures of success, KPI, key performance indicators, unless and until you are able to show the impact of learning in terms of parameters, etc., make it measurable, make it touchy, feely, people can touch it, it's tangible, it is difficult to make a hard sell. So, what is the ideal response to this question? We have to have an ideal balance, and it can vary. For senior leadership, the feeling will be more because these are experienced people, they're seasoned professionals, they've been in the industry for a long period of time. They will not learn. वो दुनिया में जो पढ़ना था सब कुछ पढ़ चुके हैं. In fact, तुमसे ज्यादा जानते हैं most of the cases में, but you are the trainer. You are supposed to train a vice president who is like been working for 30 years. क्या करोगे? Does it mean that you cannot do the job? You can. You, as the learning expert, you have to design it in a way that the person still finds value, still learns something new, and it is primarily, what do we call it? Experiential, right? So if you have carefully studied the Kirkpatrick model, you will see why was the last level added? How many more layers did Kirkpatrick have initially? And then the fifth layer was added, right?
Four. Four.
Yeah,
Levels.
initially it had 4, and then there was a fifth layer added. Aspirational value that was added becomes very important, because unless and until you are able to do the dance between measures of success and experiential value, your training program will crash. At different levels, it's different. For example, for junior people who are supposed to go operate a machine, follow a process, for them, subjectivity will be very less. Objectivity will be very high. Less human connection is required, and whatever human connection is required, it is to make the person comfortable, happy, joyous, and receptive. That's all that is required. Everything else, they also have come with very clear expectations. What are we going to learn here? Whereas as compared to that, you go for a leadership development program, a soft skills program, the expectations are different, and the level of feeling and thinking, the balance has to be changed. So that is where I'm going back to whose comment was it? Ganesh or Jugar? I'm sorry, I'm forgetting your name.
It's mine,
It is
I
not,
think.
yeah, not necessarily it is the most important, but it is what we do to make that most important thing measurable also makes a huge impact. And I love talking about budgets because that's what we struggle. We learning people struggle the most when we have to go and ask for budgets. When you make it measurable, it's easier for people to sell the value that this adds, all the hard work that we do. Eventually, it all boils down to numbers. The CFO sits down and calculates the revenue, stakeholders, how much dividends are getting paid, what profits have happened. We have, if we want a seat at the table, we have to have the right mix of thinking and feeling. And the same thing about judging and perceiving. Perceiving is again the softer aspect of it. But judging is क्या है? हाँ, हमने बहुत मेहनत करी. Everybody is emotional, completely charged. But at the end of it, the project was a failure. So that is where you are looking at the hard facts and not lying to anybody. कोशिश किया, great. We are aware of it, great. We tried, great. Okay, we have to do something different. Sorry, didn't work. We have to be vulnerable enough to accept it and move on with it. Now we are talking about learning experts as ourselves. Now let's shift and we become people who are going to receive learning. For them also understanding what kind of a group of people you are going to interact with sometimes plays a very important role. When you design training programs, कुछ में psychometric होता है, कुछ में नहीं होता है, कुछ में pre-work होता है, कुछ में pre-work नहीं होता है, कुछ में बोलते हैं वीडियो देख के आओ, ये पढ़ के आओ, कुछ में कुछ नहीं बोलते. Why? Because the trainer is trying to understand the group mix, or what we call as the TG, target audience. We are trying to understand that before we impart a certain kind of training. Technical trainings में knowledge check करते हैं कि is everybody at the same level. कुछ जगहों में soft skills में they check all these kind of things कि कौन सा learning style सबसे ज्यादा चलेगा. In case there are different clusters of people, then the learner has to vary their style of delivery. And same is the case with online learning. अगर आप portal design कर रहे हो, then you'll have to cater to different learning styles. At least it's a great baseline to establish कि भाई कितने variety है. What kind of options do I have in my bag being the classroom that I am going to deal with. So it's a great aspect. You don't have to do it, but if you have the time and if there is a need for you to understand your audience better, this is a great quiz or a questionnaire or a mini interview you can do to understand your audience better. And that plays a huge role, a very, very big role in personalizing learning experiences. So now, because, and again, I'm not going to dwell on this for a long time because you guys are matured enough and you are already in the learning space, we'll quickly run through the benefits of having an idea about the cognitive learning styles. So what the questions that will help you identify the cognitive learning styles and establish a baseline. What teaching methods did the learner become accustomed to during primary and secondary education? ये पूछ सकते हैं to find out how they are responding to learning. What is their dominant style of learning? What technologies, if any, were used in the education process? Did they experience any technology या फिर normal hardbound किताबों से पढ़ के आए हैं? What social influences affected their learning and engagement? And is the learner geared more towards team activities or individual activities? Then, in addition to that, personalization looks at what else? The current state of knowledge. जो मैंने बोला, baseline establish करना. What gaps exists in learners' knowledge or skill or attitude? And what specific knowledge, skill, and attitudes are required to perform optimally? Now, here I am again going to take a pause. Yes, Ganesh.
One query is, if
Yes, please.
possible,
Yes, sure.
we are talking about this dynamics of upscaling, and there is another word about the cross-skilling.
Yes.
Does this is the same, or if it is different? If it is
Very
same,
interesting
then,
question. Very interesting
then we
question.
apply the same, or if
Yes.
it is
Okay. Let's
different.
talk about this. Let's talk about this. And I might talk about it in two segments. Okay. First of all, let's talk about what we mean by skill gaps that is in learner's knowledge. Now let's take a live example. साल के अंत में appraisal होता है. Generally what happens is people sit down and see, okay, to do this job, you need this skill at this level, this skill at this level, and this skill at this level. You are at this level. When you gave an interview, you claimed something else. So in some things, you are better than what you claimed. In some things, you're not that good. In fact, you require some development. But because we have designed a job description, There is a certain level of proficiency required in the job. So आप उससे या तो कहीं ऊपर हो या फिर नीचे हो. That becomes your gap. And it's a great way, and it happens pretty much across industries. You can take factories, you can take doctors, you can take engineers, you can take any kind of profession. This is the mota way of identifying skill gaps. The methods can be different, but that is how you identify skill gap. Now, let us say there is a disaster that has happened. Okay, when we say disaster, it can be a geographical disaster, it can be a political disaster, any other disaster. Many of you would have heard about backup plan, BCP. How many of you heard about BCP plans that we put in place? Generally operations के लिए होता है, where people have to go to different
Business
sites.
continuity plan.
Business continuity plan. Thank you. So when we do business continuity plan, it means that Tina, who generally is field executive in sales, has to sit down and actually process an insurance claim. Now, if Tina was not skilled on it, she doesn't use it every day. But in dire situations, we have a cross-skilled resource. This is a cross-skilled example of where cross-skilling can help. Okay. So cross-skilling is not necessarily upskilling. Doesn't mean that you are going upwards at the skill level. So upskilling generally means that you are evolving the proficiency level of the skill. Let us take an example. You learned how to hold a knife. Now you know how to use the knife. Now you can do fine chopping and cutting and everything. Your proficiency is increasing from level 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, and this is called skilling. You are increasing the certain skill or a combination of skills together. Cross-skilling is that Tina knows how to hold the knife, but she also knows how to use the strainer. Or she knows also how to make tea, which is different skill, but usko kar lete hain, because that way she can do both the jobs wherever required, and sometimes we can also change departments and utilize best. Is it upskilling? No. Cross-skilling can help us in various situations. One, when we get de-skilling of jobs. कुछ नौकरियां हैं जो पहले बहुत important होती थी, now that skill is not that important. So when we de-skill jobs, we train multiple people to do multiple things. Now you can do plug and play, like USB. You take one person from one department, दूसरी जगह भेज दो. बहुत परेशान हो रहा है, मैं ये जॉब बहुत दिनों से कर रही हूँ, मैं बोर हो गई हूँ, मेरी लाइफ का पर्पस खत्म हो गया, जाओ तुम दूसरे डिपार्टमेंट में जाओ, कुछ दिन घूम के आओ. Especially the human resource people will relate to it. It gives them a, क्या बोलते हैं हम इसको, long term assignment, short time assignment, and this becomes an addition to the resume, calms down the employee also a little bit. Somebody who's been in one department with a not so great boss, and they are upset and they are saying मैं तो इतना अच्छा काम करता हूँ, इतने सालों से यहीं फंसा हुआ हूँ, promotion मिल नहीं रही है. Maybe the guy is good at the job, but not fantastic. And because he's just average, he's not able to, break the glass ceiling. तो उसको एक short term assignment दो, उसको cross skill करके देखो, maybe he's a better fit somewhere else. So I hope I responded to the question. Did you get it, Ganesh? Okay, great. Thank you, Ganesh. Lovely question. Thank you for asking that. So cross-skilling is your trump card. If a trainer has to show value and revenue saving, you can say these are niche skills and they are not used every day, but we do have need for it. I have a cross-skilling plan, and I will make sure that every quarter I will cross-skill 1/10 of the population to do something additional. And that will make sure that we do not have to immediately hire people in case of crisis situation, or if somebody leaves, the show will go on. Nothing will go on standstill. That is an excellent example. Another example of cross-skilling where it works. For example, one of the finance leads left. Uska backup already tha. The moment she left, this girl plugged in. She said, I'm not going to do this for a whole period of time. I'm filling in temporarily along with my job. So she's doing what? Double hatting. She's double hatting. The show goes on. Nothing stops. Nothing piles up. The new girl gets hired. She serves a notice period. She comes and joins, and this girl goes away. So this is the benefit. The companies benefit immensely when you are able to balance cross-skilling, upskilling, and reskilling. Reskilling is something which is becoming an eventual truth, but reskilling also. How many of you do PKTs? They call it PKTs, but in different industry, you call it different. Process knowledge test. The job that you do every day, how good are you at it? Especially people who are the ground level people who really deliver the product, who deliver the service, deliver the product as in the physical product in a factory. Process knowledge test. We taught you something, you do it every day. But as you continue doing it, small misses start happening. You forget about the spec क्योंकि वो रोज करते नहीं है, exact नहीं याद है. 6.3 था, 6.75 था. Does it make a big difference? Yes, it does. In medical industry, it can make the difference between life and death. So that is also reskilling. Continuously keep checking where people are. Is there a gap? Is this becoming a risk? And if it is, what can we do to mitigate it? So the right balance of upskilling, cross-skilling, and reskilling can make or break an organization, especially if it's in defense, medical, where life-threatening situation is prevalent. So I'm reading Anirban's comment. But is cross-skilling worth for different role instead of solving challenges in present existing role, considering that grass is green on either side? It's an interesting comment. I would say that the worth of cross-skilling can be gauged and it can be actually a part of a RCA, a root cause analysis example, or an FMEA, failure mode effect analysis, which is one of the Six Sigma tools, where you get to know that how much of an impact, if we do not cross skill, will eventually come down to the process. How many failures can happen because of that not being considered? If it is highly impactful, how many of you know about a RPN number, which is called a risk priority number? Do you guys know about a risk priority number? How many of you know?
I know because
Okay, take a step. Take a step. How will you explain risk priority number to somebody like Anirban? Maybe he knows it, but I'm just saying for the
it's
benefit
like
of the group.
when we conduct the FMEA, so where there are the three things we calculate is like OC occurrence,
The risk, yeah, occurrence, yeah. Mhm.
Severity, and
Yes.
I'm just OCD, I think.
Criticality.
Detection,
Critical
Criticality.
detection,
Detection.
detection.
detection, sorry. Occurrence, detection, and severity. These are the three numbers. Let's suppose when we're talking about the first we check the criticality. If some what is the criticality of this specific parameter? If something happened, so how much it's going to impact our business, whether it'll have a very minor impact, major impact, or it'll vanish our business or not. That is the criticality, and we calculate on the basis of 0 to 1 to 10.
Yes.
So if it is very critical, we measure at like 9 and 10 in something where it will going to majorly impact the business.
Yes.
1, 2, 3 is like very minimum, like there'll be some escalation, something like that. Some
It's a
quick
yellow
fixes
flag.
can be done, yellow
Yeah.
flags.
Yes.
Then after severity, we check the occurrence. What is the probability of the occurrence of these risk into the business? We
Yes.
also calculate basis the 1 to 10. If there is a probability, like if these risks are coming like once in a year or two, so it's on a if it's coming like 1 or 2 in a year, so we'll rate it like a 1 or 2. Or if it's like very frequent on a daily or weekly basis, to the occurrence will be 9 or 10. Then
Yes.
we have a detection. So
Detection.
how probably
Yes.
we can detect these frauds or these instances? So if we have a automation into the system, so we can easily detect these occurrences. So in that situation, our rating will be 1 or 2. Or if it is very difficult to detect, only if somebody is escalating to us, or due to some blunder only we'll able to detect, then the rating would be 9 or 10. With the combination of, it'll be a sum product, like we need to multiply all the three numbers
Yes.
and find out the
Yes.
RP number there.
Yes. And based on the RPN numbers byproduct, we can stack out what the risk is involved. So to respond to Anirban's question, in case the job in which a person is involved is highly critical and is highly impactful, हम उसके job के लिए 3-4 cross skilled बंदे निकालेंगे just to support that person in case of a crisis. But if it is a regular job,
Yeah,
we might actually, yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, another thing what I meant is, suppose if one has entered into a role, okay, and is doing for over more than a year, more than 1.5 years, and is confident of that, and next day, okay, so one day it happens that any team member or any new stakeholder raises any issues, and it keeps on coming for that employee. So in that case, out of frustration, is that worth to solve existing problem, or out of frustration, like to fast killing and move to another role? Yeah. So actually, this is what
Yeah.
I meant.
So there are three responses to this. Number one, it can be a slightly subjective issue, so it might have to be dealt case on case basis. Number two, what we can also look into the situation is what is driving the frustration. Okay, is it a human issue? Is it a soft issue? Or is it a knowledge issue? And the third is, I personally always recommend all roles to be cross-skilled. Unless and until it is very menial and anybody can do it, all roles being cross-skilled makes that the organization is robust, and the organization is a very, very low chance of failure in any aspect, be it software aspect or be it a large revenue impactful aspect. So that's my again recommendation. And thank you, Geeta, for taking that stab. You did a great job for the RPN. Yes, Ganesh.
I want to share one small example
Yes,
about the
please.
Kodak. When we
Sure.
are saying like cross-skilling.
Yeah.
So if Kodak would have thought very seriously, it would have not
Mhm.
collapsed.
Yes.
But now they didn't thought about the cross-skilling and they
Mhm.
collapsed. So
Yes.
I mean, it's a very big example. Like, of course, I mean there are
Very big
subjective
example.
things.
Very big
Yeah, I mean
example.
it's a subjective industry to industry. What Anirban said, I agree on that. But
Mm.
when we see the normal situation or the generic situation, so
Mm.
in that situation, when leaders need to take some decision, so
Yes.
that time I think it becomes very important. Like, of course, I mean when things are going very well, at that
Mm.
time situation may not allow you to cross scale. But when there is
Exactly.
a situation, then you need to take this decision. Otherwise, as we saw, like I mean, Kodak has failed very miserably.
Mm.
And if they could have cross-skilled their
Mm.
leaders or the employees, I think it would
Mm.
have been number one company now in digital photography.
Exactly. Exactly. And thank you for that example. And I'm going to latch on two things along with what Ganesh just mentioned. Second, one of the things is innovation appetite in an organization. Everybody says, "Hum to innovate karna chahte hain." We want to innovate. We want to innovate. When it really comes to innovation appetite, it is seen that there are many organizations who say they want to innovate, but they don't really want to. They just say that they want to. And that is where the innovation appetite falls flat on the face. It's just lip service. And the second thing is, you as a learning expert, it is your job, it is your duty, it is your responsibility to highlight the red flags as to if we do not do this, this is the risk we run. That is why, this is again my personal opinion, each and every trainer should take time to do the Lean Six Sigma training. Because all these terms that we use right now, Paretos and RPNs and FMEAs and BPMS and all these terms that we use very freely in the learning community, somebody who doesn't have an idea of Six Sigma or the quality, continuous improvement, quality parameters, they will struggle. And when you learn or you get certified in these things, your ability, your intelligence in conversation, your ability to predict errors, ability to predict risks increases largely. So it's a personal development recommendation. If you want to understand how businesses think, how each and every decision of yours or recommendation of yours can make a direct impact on the revenue stream and also save the business embarrassment and further risk, it is worth something that you might want to consider. Some of the organizations, for example, I was in GE, if you had to get promotion beyond a point, you had to be Six Sigma trained and certified. We hated it at that time, but we all had to do a real life project to be able to do that. That time we hated it, but now I'm so grateful and glad that they forced that upon us because it has changed the way we look at things. It has changed the way you evaluate situations. And when somebody tries to be very smart and throw these terms at you, you are like, I know this. I already am aware of this. You are not caught off guard. So again, a bit of a personal recommendation, but great discussion. Thank you guys. I really, really appreciate it. Okay. So let's all take a breather before I jump onto
In army, everybody is trained. to have a training onto the how to operate the various arms. Whether you are a coolie, whether you are a cook, whether whatever is the position, everybody is cross trained so
Yes.
that if the situation comes, they are ready to fight.
And the same thing with doctors, right? First year, everybody has
Correct,
to
ma'am.
do the entire human anatomy. And then you go into specialization. Same thing in engineering, when you get specialization at the end, right? Basic knowledge. It is called, what do we call it? Learners, generally all of you learning experts would design your programs as how? Foundational, essential, expert. Typical pyramid बनाते हैं हम लोग. 3 levels of learning करते हैं, 5 levels of learning करते हैं. उससे ज्यादा तो कर नहीं सकते, because उससे ज्यादा करते हैं तो everybody gets confused. This we are talking about is foundational. If you are giving foundational information to everybody, instead of making it very customized and siloed, then you run the risk of people not being able to fill in for each other. Yeah, so foundational level is essential for everybody to have. Now let's move to a little more on styles of learning. And this is when I will actually be quiet for full 1 minute for all of you to absorb this. This is totally visual for all of you to read. Actually, it's about various kind of learning styles. And I'm going to give you time to absorb this. This is not in the book. I promise that whatever is not in the book, I will call out. This is not in the book. You will get it as a part of the presentation. But I think you will enjoy the visual and you can ask me questions. I will not parrot this slide to you. All of you are intelligent enough to. It talks about visual learners, talks about auditory learners, talks about kinesthetic learners, and then it talks about what are the benefits of understanding the type of learning style for me. Okay, so I'm going to be quiet for some time. I want you guys to absorb this information. If something looks completely out of the ordinary or something that you've not heard before, let's have a discussion or have any questions. So I'm going to be quiet.
Four styles of learning, na ma'am? Four styles of learner, like visual, kinesthetic, auditory, and one more style. I just got forgot.
Kinesthetic,
Audio visual,
audio
audio
visual,
visual,
audio visual,
Audio.
audio
kinesthetic.
visual.
It's a combination of auditory and visual.
2D, 2D, and 3D.
Correct. All right. So this is not something which is completely out of the ordinary. Most of us are aware of it. But ये हम क्यों
Yes,
दिखा
ma'am.
रहे
We have studied it in this first semester itself.
हैं? Exactly.
There is another
So,
inclusion of R,
yeah.
VAR, VARK. Before
Okay.
kinesthetic, there is R. So the
Okay.
learners who learn from reading things.
Okay. Okay. So one of the things that, so if you see RW, read, write learners, so those are the people who read, write, and learn. Okay. So I am humbly from that generation who reads, writes, recollects, again reads. But I am also not averse to the idea of visual learning. So it's a combination. Each one of us are different from the other, and none of the methods are right or wrong. It's just about comfort of people. मगर हम क्यों समझ रहे हैं? हम इसलिए समझ रहे हैं because even in the earlier slide, why did I propose that we can do an assessment to understand the style of learning? Is because then you get a better handle on the population. Do you have to do all the tests? No. You might do some, you might do all as a combination. It entirely depends upon the outcomes of your learning experience. If it's a digital transformation learning, is it the product you are teaching? Is it the process you are teaching? Or is it something that we are teaching which will help people to use the portal, learning portal, or interact with the machine, or interact with certain tools and softwares that come as a part of your learning management system. The different kind of trainings that you have to set up. So depending upon what kind of outcomes, what kind of success parameters you have set up, as ye ho gaya to mera training successful hai. What are my measures of success, and how am I going to make sure that I guarantee to the people that these people have trained, ab ye master ban chuke hain. How do you do that? So various kinds of evaluations help you. So understanding the type of learning will help you to first time recall, shorter learning curve, know what kind of evaluation tests will work, and what training methodology do I want to use. Do I want to do 70, 20, 10? In the 70, how am I going to do the 70? How am I going to do the 20? Who are going to be a part of the 20? 10, you can still take care of because it's pretty much content which you're going to deliver. It can be videos, it can be PDFs, it can be presentations, it can be in-person sessions. But what becomes crucial is how do you plan the 70 and the 20? Because most of the time, earlier at least, the generations used to think that training means the only 10%. No, it is not. The 10% will fail miserably because according to adult learning principle, one person doesn't hear anything beyond 20 minutes. According to me, today's adult doesn't even listen anything beyond 10 minutes, right? And the other thing that we also have to make sure that people acknowledge and appreciate is, other than adult learning principle, we have to also say how much of knowledge and how much of change we are subjecting our people today. Earlier, change used to be an excitement. Nowadays, there's change fatigue. There's so much change happening. Technology is changing at a rampant phase that people almost have fatigue of things changing too fast. What is the right combination that will make sure my job is done? Because what we cannot control is how the world is changing, what the company expects from me. But what we can control is how we make sure that whatever job is given to us is done well. And we have the confidence when we sign off somebody that this person has been trained and this person has the confidence and the knowledge required to do the job. This becomes even more crucial because we are now talking about digitizing learning experience. The beauty of somebody standing and imparting a session is the person can dynamically change the flow of how they're doing things in the classroom and also change the entire course structure, one batch to another. But the whole concept of digital transformation is to make sure that you cater to all the scenarios of learning, not only one kind, but if somebody is an advanced learner, what will you do? Basic learner, what will you do? Intermediate learner, what will you do? When will you start from? Will you start from the basics? Will you start from the middle? What time you will implant the quizzes? What time you will do the in-person activities? What time you will do some icebreakers? All of that, being able to manage it digitally requires your in-depth understanding of the population you will deal with. That is why I'm going back to the conversation we had in our first session, that copy paste मत करो. कॉम्पिटिटर कर रहा है, हम भी कर लेते हैं. कॉम्पिटिटर के भी 100 लोग हैं, हमारे भी 100 लोग, हम कर लेते हैं, हम पैसा लगा देते हैं. No, it's looking at it opposite, upside down. Your requirement, your organization, your needs, it can be the same as somebody else, but look at the unique differences your population has, what unique difference you would like them to have. That should be in alignment with the vision of the organization. Based on that, take your technology calls. Do not just go and splurge your budget on buying something which you don't even need. It is unique to your population. And all of these various kind of parameters and indicators helps you identify what kind of support system, what kind of digital transformation is my organization ready for. Require alag cheez hai. You might require ABC, but is my organization ready? If I think I will do it in 2024, are they ready? Zarurat to hai, but are they ready? Your 6 pillars that we did in chapter number 1 is going to play a huge role in you getting a sense of whether using these tools, the organization is ready or not. Okay. So now let's delve a little more serious stuff now. We are going to talk about the cognitive learning loop. How many of you are aware of the cognitive learning loop? Have you heard about it before? Has somebody spoken to you before?
Not exactly this, but we have seen something like this in the first sem when we had that topic, the subject,
चलो तो
cognitive.
बताओ फिर थोड़ा समझाओ क्या समझ आया
So basically,
Take a
I
step.
think as the image shows, it's like as the word says, it's a loop. It's something which is happening on a continuous basis.
Hmm.
And my understanding is we try to first we try to see what the skill gaps are, and once we train them, we see if they can apply it, and then we get the response, and based on the response, the next trainings and the next upskilling or next thing is done, like what's next for the learner, what more that the learner needs, is it a support only on training or coaching on mentoring, whatever it is.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's
Thank you.
my
Ganesh.
understanding.
That's all right. That's all right. Thank you for taking a step. Go ahead, Ganesh.
Sorry, I mean, I have a query for the previous slide. Is it okay?
Sure. Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we are seeing here multiple methods, like
Mhm.
how somebody learns.
Mhm.
So my question is like, how do we analyze that?
Yeah.
See, we will have a pool of people who might be having these different characteristics or the attributes that somebody might be learning by just visuals. Somebody might be just saying like by cognitive, I can learn.
Yes.
So is there any method that we can
Yes. There are
identify?
psychometrics. Ganesh, there are specific psychometric tests that are designed to identify these, which are easily available as packages, which you can buy and you can give them out to people.
Does that means like even for any skilling, should we do
Yes.
this before?
No, it depends upon.
It will be very time consuming, right?
One, it will be time consuming. Second, it's going to be very, very expensive.
Costly.
For example, in our organization, we wanted to understand innovation appetite. And that's why I was so confident about that example I gave. Everybody wants innovation. Okay. But when you actually go and check in the organization, how many people are innovators, how many people are doers, and how many people only give orders. We wanted to identify the three groups of people. Based on that, we wanted to train the innovators to innovate better, take away more of the administrative job away from them, and help them focus on innovation only. Up is training made, there is a very high need of understanding how will these people learn. First of all, how do we make the difference? And how will these people learn? So this is an expensive exercise. It is a very in-depth psychological exercise to be able to identify it. In some situations, you require it. In some situations, you don't. Now, at what level of severity you require, again, there are some free tests that you can take. You can do a mix and match of questions by yourself just to get an idea about who will be able to learn how. And you can do some, for example, you can give three pictures, which is the best way for you to learn. What do you enjoy the most? You can yourself create some, manufacture some questions, and you will get a very fair idea as to where the person lies in the spectrum. But if it is really, really important for you because the business outcome or the learning outcome is critical, in that sense, you just hand it over to the expert organizations or you buy those tests, which can be imparted. They will create the report, they will analyze the report, they will give you a detailed spectrum, a spread analysis as to where your main population is, and recommendations as to how you should run those trainings. So there are solutions out there. And if you want to know more, just drop me a message. I can send you some material there if you're excited and interested to learn. Thank you for the
Yeah, so
question.
you're saying like depending on the situation, you can take the decision
Yes.
like how you want to go.
Yes, yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
thanks.
Depending upon the seniority of the level also. Let us say you are training senior vice presidents, okay? And you're getting one of them ready to be a CEO or replace a CFO. Wahan pe, it's very important to get that test done. It might be a small group, but it's important for us to know. Similarly, it can be a group of scientists who are going to do a defense project. Again, we need to understand. First of all, how will they learn? Whatever information will teach them, and how will they apply? In that situation, again, the psychometrics is important. How will they learn? So we make the material in a way that they are able to understand it, the shortest learning curve, and remember, retain. So all of those packages are available. There's a group of psychologists who have designed a lot of foolproof, strong tests that can be used. Yes, Smita.
This regarding the cognitive loop, learning loop.
Yes.
I believe it's a process from known to unknown, going to known to unknown.
Yes.
So when we say comprehension, a person has to be very much clear that what am I supposed to, why am I supposed to, what am I supposed to learn here? And then going to the known fact related to the real life scenarios, then analyze, evaluation, and creation. If we connect the Blooms with this, the first 4 levels of the Bloom's taxonomy go with comprehension and memory.
Yes.
And
Yes.
evaluation and creation comes with the third part of application.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
when we comprehend the real known scenario, we'll understand why am I learning this
Yes.
in the first comprehension part, then relate that whatever I have learned in the midway in the journey, have I learned something related to it, and how can I create something new?
Absolutely.
Then comes out the application part when I apply the knowledge acquired and with the learning knowledge.
Fabulous. Smita's done the job on the slide. So she's pretty much covered everything. The only thing, thank you very much. The only thing I want to add is if you see at the top, the first thing that we talked about was personalization of experience. Now we are talking about engaging people. You as a trainer have to be the driving force to keep people crazy in this loop. So you may have to make sure that for continuous evolution of your learners and to keep them engaged and excited and curious, you have to make sure they're always in this loop. That means the WIFM, what's in it for me, has to be very clear. So the question is, think how the topic fits into a large picture. So if I send that this is something we will do, so let us say you are designing your digital transformation journey, you are going to launch a complete new website, all the training material is going to go there, everything is going to get online with him. A new employee is like, oh my God, ek or training. So how do we make sure the WIFM? You don't have to stay back for 3 hours to sit on a kiosk and do a training. You can do it on your phone. It will be beneficial. You can track your score. You guys can play a game in a group. It can be competitive. We make the WIFM very clear. Once the WIFM is clear, you got the people hooked. Now, once you get them hooked, till that point, it's also great. Then we are talking about memory. How you relate new information to previous information. Do you remember, guys, the freeze unfreeze model that we did? In the last chapter, we did the freeze, unfreeze, refreeze model. We said first we will unfreeze the older beliefs, then we will freeze the new beliefs, because unless we unfreeze, we cannot put in new beliefs and make it a new way of working. Or otherwise, what people will do is they will go into the WIFM, they will learn new things, but eventually they won't apply it. They will go back to older things of doing because वहाँ comfort zone है ना. They want to go back to the comfort zone. So नया चीज सीख लिया मगर वही पुराना वाला ही अच्छा है. Okay. So how do we make sure that people are constantly in this loop? The WIFM is clear, they're learning new things, they're applying. Again, the WIFM is clear, they're learning new things, they're applying, they're feeling excited, they're happy, they're energized. Now they want to learn more. They're getting more clarity on the WIFM. The idea of an ideal trainer is to let this free flow. And eventually what happens is one trainer is able to create other master trainers who become expert in various areas, and then they spread the virus or the germ of learning or whatever you want to call it. You can spread it across the organization. And this is what we are also talking about, people being change champions. In case you are long, let's go back to our original aim of the course. What is our aim? Digital transformation of learning and development. It's your job to make sure that you transform learning and development. If people are very clear about the WIFM, you will find your champions. They want to learn. कैसे होगा, क्या होगा, कब होगा, कैसे होगा. And then बहुत झंझट है. I'm going back to how it used to be. That is where you lost them. So how do we make sure that the WIFM is so clear and your processes, systems, and every checks and balances are in such a way that तुम चाह के भी पुराने सिस्टम में नहीं जा सकते. Look at iPhone. वो सनसेट कर देते हैं. तुम यूज ही नहीं कर सकते पुराना प्रोडक्ट. तुमको निकाल के फेंकना पड़ेगा तुम्हें. तुम यूज ही नहीं कर पाओगे एक पॉइंट के बाद. Samsung phones will fry after 4 or 5 years. नहीं चलेंगे. Suddenly they will just stop working. That is like a forced reboot or a forced upgrade. How do we make sure that we build in checks, balances, excitement, curiosity in our learning process in a way that people are constantly in the cognitive learning? So on the right hand side, there's obviously by this screen, the slide has been on the screen for quite some time. Most of you have read it, but I'm just for the benefit because there's an important concept of upskilling. We're talking about Engaged learners. What are the qualities of engaged learners? Greater ownership in learning, increased motivation, improved self-esteem, improved relationship with peers and trainer, and increased self-efficacy. So that's engaging learners. And again, this is the second aspect of upskilling. Then we are going to talk about chunking techniques. But before I go into chunking, are there any questions for the previous two slides? I will address them and then we can move into chunking. Anyone? Or have I lost people? बहुत
Just
ज़्यादा हो रहा है, heavy हो रहा है.
no. And just
हाँ
a
जी.
comment for you. I mean, the
Yes.
previous slide, I think whatever you're saying.
Yes.
Can you go to the previous slide, please?
Yeah. Can you?
Yeah, I mean, the same thing we are also, I'm also observing in engaging learners. So
Yes.
you're
Yes.
really, I mean, engaging us.
Thank you. You're very kind. Thank you so much. Thank you. So chunking, what does chunking mean? If the word chunk comes to you, what does it come to you as? Image क्या आता है? दिमाग में image क्या आता है? Chunk बोलते.
Soya chunks.
Soya chunks, छोटा छोटा, right? Anybody
From
else
a
has some examples?
from a lot of learning material, we have to keep certain thing at a place so that the people are able to imbibe easily. They are able to relate
We
one
used
chapter to
to
the second to the third. So that is a chunking. We are going to keep in those small groups. Thanks.
we used to create a knowledge bites related to just crux of a big topic. Knowledge bites kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Bite-sized information, right? That is the takeaway. Good point,
Just
Jigar.
give a
Extract and
refresher, like if
synthesize
somebody
fast.
think about, just go through with knowledge points so he can relate with the topic, that what was the topic. Just a
Yes.
very summary, very specific summary about some specific information.
कितना इजी लगता है ना सुनने में. चंकिंग, छोटा इंफॉर्मेशन, शार्प इंफॉर्मेशन, very pointed information. But then actually chunking also has techniques.
सिंपल क्या कहता
How
है?
do you chunk? Yeah, go ahead.
It's simple ना. There is a one very famous line. कहना क्या चाहते हो?
हाँ, कहना क्या चाहते
Simple.
हो? But then उसके भी techniques हैं. कैसे chunking करते हैं? Now, chunking in language, in software, etc., might be very simple. But when we talk about chunking, large amounts of information, which are all correlated to each other, then you have to have an effective technique. So to make sure that people are not completely lost. सुनने में, as a concept, it is very easy. So तोड़ दो, छोटा-छोटा piece कर दो, हो जाएगा. But then how do you make sure that each piece seamlessly moves into the next one, and that one seamlessly moves into the next one, and by the time you've reached A, B, C, D, you have not completely forgotten A. So chunking has various kind of techniques. So let's see if we can unearth a few very simple ones. Okay. So this is the most easy element. You have a lot of information, you break it down. The ability to chunk information helps to, why are we doing chunking? Readily and vividly remember information. The whole idea, even when I'm talking to all of you, by giving you bite-sized information, by not filling up the slide all at one go so that you are all confused with too much information, is also a way of telling the brain, बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं है, समझ आ रहा है. You know, it's logical. समझ तो आ रहा है, easy तो है. That's also a way for people to remember readily and vividly, using colors, using appropriate breaks, using conversations, using examples. These are ways of chunking. They may not be as simple as cutting A, B, C, D, E separately, but you as a learning expert have to master the art of how will you chunk. कोई necessary नहीं है 15 video बना दो. You can have a document, you can have a game, you can have a video, you can have a recap, you can have a quiz, you can have a break. There are also ways, effective ways of enabling chunking the information and for people to retain information. Retention पे बाद में जाएंगे. Abhi, let's now look at chunking. The second point, provide simple means of accessing information which is stored in memory. We will also talk about short-term memory and long-term memory, and what converts memories, short-term information to go into long-term. Okay. For now, let's focus on chunking. Third one is increases the amount of information a learner can deal with. And this is very, very obvious. I drop everything on you. Onboarding में गए, एक बड़े कॉर्पोरेट के ऑनबोर्डिंग में गए, सुबह से लेके शाम तक अच्छे सूट बूट पहन के लोग आए और एक के बाद एक आए, आईटी सिक्योरिटी, साइबर सिक्योरिटी, एचआर, लीव इंफॉर्मेशन, प्रोडक्ट इंफॉर्मेशन, ग्लोबल फुटप्रिंट, ये भी ले लो, वो भी ले लो, फोल्डर ले लो, लैपटॉप बैग ले लो, आज ही फायरवॉल इंस्टॉल कर लो, सब कुछ कर लो, आज ही कर लो. हमने बहुत बढ़िया इंडक्शन दिया. नहीं चिकू, जीरो दिया है तुमने इंडक्शन. बंदे को 5% नहीं याद है अगले दिन. That is why the traditional ways of onboarding, induction are slowly going away, because itna information nobody can retain. You have to give people space to breathe, to be able to process all that information. क्यों जानना है मुझे? मेरे लिए है भी important. So now those questions, again, you can relate to the cognitive loop also, but then simply as a person who's going to be a part and parcel of delivering such information, we as learning experts need to understand it. कि बहुत सारे इंफॉर्मेशन हम अपने गुड इंटेंट से दे रहे हैं कि हाँ हाँ समझ आएगा, एकदम लॉजिकल है, people will be able to get it. We might be overwhelming and confusing people. Also, not everybody learns at the same rate. People have different ways of learning. We just looked at it. It might just be throwing somebody in an ocean of information. We don't want that. So that is where we make sure that we use chunking techniques. So let's see the 3 steps to content chunking. Very simple. If you want to read it first, you are welcome to. It's simply a graphic which will help your recollection really well when we talk about chunking. So what is content chunking? Why content chunking? And steps to content chunking. If you look at the steps, they're quite interesting actually. It talks about, it begins at the highest level. Why? Who gave that example? कि कहना क्या चाहते हो? पहले तो कहना क्या चाहते हो clear कर लो. Start at the highest level. Then do a working memory check. कैसे check करेंगे? ये जो information देते जा रहे हैं, like I gave the example, loads and loads of information. The company was founded on so and so date. This we do, that we do. This market we are in, that market we are in. We are in this many countries with this many employees. Then we have these softwares. Then we have an IT team. Then we have people across so many continents. Then we have offices here. How? What exactly is the outcome? कहना क्या चाहते हो? Start at the highest level. Do a working memory check. Quiz करेंगे, game करेंगे, video करेंगे, check करेंगे, कुछ लिख के लेंगे. How do you want to make sure your working memory check and people are not gone into freeze mode कि भाई बैठ के सुन रहे हैं. Some are waiting for this to get over. And then the last one is chunk at screen level. Now this has become inevitable for us because now learning is just not sitting and listening to someone. It involves some form of a screen at all times. So how do you chunk at screen level? So this slide is a good example. You got to see first what chunking is, then ये नीचे वाला picture आया, उसके बाद ability to chunk information क्यों important है वो आया, and then on the right hand side you see everything at one go. So it is first information, then understanding, logical conclusion, and then the final is recollection. Everything together. Now, let's look at the next one. We are talking about recall methods, dynamics of upskilling. The next aspect we are going to talk about is leveraging active recall. What is active recall? What is active recall? Anyone? देखते ही याद आ जाना. देखते ही याद आ जाना. Oh yeah, ये तो मैंने देखा है. How do you embed active recall? Any funny examples of active recall? Doesn't have to be from the screen.
Memes,
Ma'am,
kind of fun memes.
Okay.
A comic strip.
A comic strip. Anything else?
ma'am, ads that we see.
Exactly. I was looking
Right.
for it. वो
For
अमूल
brand
बटर
recall,
की
Maggie
लड़की को
uses
देखा है?
2-minute noodle.
Yes, 2 minute noodle. वो अमूल की जो अमूल बटर की लड़की को देखा है, उसको देखते ही हमें पता होता है अमूल बटर है, right?
And
Anywhere
sunflower oil में जो वो I don't remember the name of that hero.
हाँ, हाँ. So active recall is embedding hypnotic triggers in way of learning कि दिखते याद आ जाए. Or have such a funny story that people really laugh till their stomachs hurt. So next time, the moment they will think of the topic, they cannot forget that topic that they spoke about. These are done very innocently, but there is a big agenda behind it. The best of trainers whom I've seen, I've sat because I've been in leadership development trainings, I've seen multiple people come and train. They crack the same jokes with the same amount of innocence, with the same amount of accuracy every time at the same time, because it is deviously planted in a way that is to impart information and as a trigger for active recall. So the first one, storytelling. Kahani batao, example share karo, be vulnerable. And you can have a plethora of examples. Doesn't have to be the same example. That's a bit too extreme. You can have a share, 7, 8 examples, unme se ek share kar loge. Those examples are so relatable that people, the moment they hear it, yeah, we heard this, we heard this. We heard this when we are talking about this topic. Now you're automatically triggered an active recall anchor, which is already there in the memory, very intelligently, smartly put in there innocently. Then quiz is a great way to keep checking. It, first of all, when you especially doing remote trainings, etc., especially इतनी boring training कि तुम लोगों को सिखा रहे हो portal में कैसे learning material access करोगे, कैसे paper नहीं use करोगे, all of that can be a little tedious, especially when you're doing transformation journey and you're trying to get people to your side. To keep them engaged and not having to talk to blank screens, do a quiz. Ask people to share. Crack some jokes. Quiz. Human beings by nature, the amygdala. As many, I don't know, everybody is aware of the biology of the brain. But there is the brain, which is the reptilian brain. It's also called the reptilian brain, which checks every 9 seconds whether you are alive or not, and whether everything around you is safe or not. It is basically your safety check. Like it or not, that's the only part of the brain which is active, present, and alert even when you're sleeping. It gives you indications if any life-threatening situation comes up. So when you put the test, quiz, etc., the natural, competitive nature of human comes to front. There are people who are like, kya karna hai test board ke? But generally there's this curiosity. There is this tingling sensation that people experience when there is some kind of a not brash but mild competitive streak is put in. So you can use it at any kind of a level. For senior folks, it can be more of, oh, I know, how did I not know this? For people whom you are trying to teach something for the first time, it can be, oh, wow, I learned it. It can be a wow effect. You can choose how you want to embed it. And this doesn't necessarily have to be quiz. It can be games also. It can be a 2-minute presentation. It can be allowing somebody to do your job, saying that, okay, aap batao. You tell everybody. You remember it. Why don't you tell everybody? Also giving other people, giving away that power for some time for everybody to experience how it feels like. The last one is scenario based. I use it a lot, scenario based learning, because it's my favorite tool, because it actually allows people to experience how it is when the rubber hits the road. So scenario based learning. There's a lot of text on the screen. I have kept it intentionally because I am aware that I also have different learners here. People who would not be listening to me, they will be reading the screen. So there should be enough supporting information for people to read the screen as well. Now we are going to talk about the most important thing. Sari mehnat pe pani phir jayega if you are not able to reinforce the knowledge and if people cannot remember it. So what is the curve of forgetting? Has any of you seen this curve before? Anybody?
Not exactly like this, but yes, in normally, like, what is the retention period if we give training through text or video or combination,
Yes.
but
So
not
let's
like this.
talk, not, thank you. Not, let's not even go into video or anything. Let's simply, this is the human brain. Okay. Let us look at plain, simple, vanilla learning. For example, you and I are sitting together in a room. There is no screen, nothing. I teach you a new technique. I teach you how to cook. I teach you how to use a machine. I teach anything which is very basic and elementary. The forgetting curve for any human brain which has an average IQ is 4 weeks. Practice नहीं किया तो 4 weeks में भूल जाएंगे. Repeat nahi kiya to bhul jayenge. And that is where all these beautiful techniques of 70, 20, 10, all of this is coming into the picture. Now observe, if you have a first time repetition, your retention of information is slightly above the blue line, which is the forgetting curve. If you do another repetition in the space of 2 weeks, then the chances of your memory retention increases a little more. So basically, the beautiful and the most sweet spot. Yeah, you can, yes. Salary card. Thank you for that pun. So after the fourth repetition is when you can expect high levels of retention. That too is not 100%, but at least it is around 70, 60 to 70%. You are able to, as a trainer, you have not completely failed. And that is why people keep going back, refreshers kar lo, ye kar lo, wo kar lo, test kar lo. Now, why is it that so many of us, and I have no shame in saying that, many of us have picked up techniques and tricks of designing content, delivering various kind of content, and also evaluating content through our seniors, through people whom we've seen or imitated from others. And like I said, there is no wrong answer to that. You learn from your environment. But what is the science? Like I said, we have to be intelligent people after this course. It should not just be kuch aaye, padhe aur chale gaye. What is the intelligence value that we're taking? Next time when somebody says the word upskilling, you will have 1 million things to talk about. You have all the aspects, and you also can throw at them something called spaced technique. What is it? Spaced technique is nothing but spaced learning talks about your memory being like a cabinet. I give you new information, you file it under temporary. Abhi dekhenge, we'll play with this information. Have it relevant? Do I need to remember it? Will I use it? Is it helpful? So that's temporary. I will mark it, tag it, put it under temporary. And then you revisit that information because it's, Are, haan, ye to use karna hai. Oh my God. For example, there's a glucometer. Let me give you an example. It might be a little more fun. I bought a glucometer. My dad has sugar. So I got the glucometer. I felt great about it. लाई, पहले दिन अपना manual खोला, देखा, रख दिया उठा के. Then I went into a YouTube video and I said, इसको use कैसे करते हैं? I looked at it. हाँ, ठीक है, समझ आ गया. Next day morning, my mom is like, oh, you bought it. Now you've learned it also. Go ahead, do it. I'm like, oh, I need to really, really go back and read that again. Now I'm revisiting that information from my brain and also whatever sources I found. Now I've understood how to apply it. I'm literally, looking at it. I'm applying it. I'm using it. So now slowly what is happening is this scrolling into my long-term memory. And the more I will practice it, it will move from first repetition to second repetition to third repetition to fourth. I'm now slowly moving it into the long-term memory filing cabinet. If we fail to revisit, एक बार ग्लूकोमीटर यूज किया, उसके बाद एक नर्स को हायर कर लिया, भाई तुम ही आगे कर दिया करो, मुझे पंगा चाहिए नहीं. So I learned it. I will again clear it. I'll clear it from my temporary cabinet. हो गया काम. I had to use it. It was going into the long-term memory. It's somewhere now, at the bottom of the memory, or I might have actually cleared it. A smart learner will always tell you, जो काम के information ये भूल जाओ, बाद में पढ़ लेंगे. There is Google. Also, Buddha says, if you want to learn something, empty your cup. All that is not relevant to you, empty your cup. Get new information which is relevant, which is going to help you grow and evolve. And this is true for learning also. So you clear out your temporary cabinet to always make room for new learning. Don't keep it cluttered. बहुत सारी चीजें मत करो. That's why many people say, even though I have a different opinion about it, many people say one thing at a time. Or they say, do not focus on too many things at one go. Because that takes away your energy, takes away the effort, and it can confuse you, and it will leave you into a frenzy of trying to process too much information at a limited period of time, and nothing gets properly stored in the long-term memory filing cabinet. So before you go to sleep, you are totally confused. Sikha kya, samajh nahi aaya, I have half-baked information, I am not happy, my life is miserable. That's not what we want. Okay? We want to also remember this, guys. We want to remember this. What are the important benefits of spaced learning? Spaced learning ensures the most important knowledge is stored in our long-term memory. And that is why it is designed like this. This 4 ka number jo hai, it is scientifically proven to make sure people have the right information stored at the right period of time, and it can be retrieved at the matter of a finger snap. Short bursts of learning, each taking place through variety of visual, auditory, didactic, and interactive deliveries. Now, who decides the blend of kya hoga, how much will be visual, how much will be auditory? This is again, I'm going to take you back. Those tests, if you have taken, fair idea of your group. बातचीत करके भी पता चल जाता है. You've interacted with people for a long period of time. You don't need tests. You know what kind of people you will be dealing with. So what you can do is either take those tests if it's absolutely a new group of people, or you make a liberal assessment of what kind of a percentage of visual, auditory, didactic, and interactive deliveries you are required to throw in. And it can vary from batch to batch. So be agile. Make sure that you have enough space to go back to the drawing board whenever the kind of target population change. Planned mental breaks in between each burst of learning to allow time to assimilate. Now, the same thing that I was talking about, if I drop too much information on your head without any examples, without any fun, without any stories, without any scenarios, it's just information download. It's just like reading a book and throwing everything down on you. Application and engagement with content to reinforce understanding. So when you are able to relate the conceptual learning in your real life, it becomes fun, it becomes effortless, and it is easier to file it under the long-term memory. And the last but not the least, repetition of information using various different formats to broaden and deepen understanding always helps with recall. You will notice me, I'm trying to do recall. I don't know how much I'm succeeding. I keep going back to the previous modules to make sure that you guys are not overwhelmed. Oh my God, we have reached module number 4. We are completely losing it. No, we are building from module 1 to module 6, bit by bit. All of this is connected like a string of pearls. Why I keep going back to the recon and keep repeating all the models we're learning in the past is to make sure that you do not lose context of learning. Otherwise, it is model after model after model, structure after structure after structure. एक point के बाद सब मिला जुला के गोबर बन जाता है. So instead of doing that, let's try and make sure how we connect the dots back. And that's why after every session, I always say, do some additional reading. And they can be light reading. It can be a podcast. It can be anything that will help you understand what you learned today in context of your own job life, or if you're a student in whatever you are learning in other subjects. It helps you have a point of reference, which can again become a trigger for you to have quick active recall. Okay. So now I'm sensing that we need to also take a break, but then I'm just going to do one more slide and then we can take a short break before we move on to the next one. We are talking about using videos, which is like not something which is out of the ordinary or earth-shattering. Everybody is using it nowadays. So I made kind of some examples here, and all these links are working. You guys can visit them. We are saying traditional formal classrooms, how people are using upskilling, a live example. You can click on these. You will see some amazing formal classrooms which are integrating all the techniques. Then there are personalized classes, which are fun. Then there is self-directed learning. These are just some examples as to what kind of videos can be used to engage people when there's too much of content, too much of, information down. You can use them. And there are many real-life examples in the book as well. Take time. I'm not going to read them all here. It's just going to take more mental bandwidth for all of you. And this one, before I do balancing learning and working, how many people want a short break just to have some water and rejuvenate themselves? Yeah?
Some of us are, attending sessions since morning 8 o'clock.
Exactly.
So I think 10 to 15 minutes is
Yes,
possible.
please. No problem at all. I'm pausing the recording so that nobody misses out. Please take 10 to 15. And it's 1:45 by my watch. Let's come back in 15 minutes. Let's come back at 2 o'clock. Is that all right?
Maybe when can we start at 2:15? Half an
आधा
hour break.
घंटा
Ma'am, this is
आधा
Gurvinder.
घंटा हाँ जी आधा घंटा दे दूं
Yes, ma'am, दे दीजिए मैम.
इतनी अमीर हूं मैं इतनी
No,
अमीर हूं
no,
आधा
madam.
घंटा
15
Ma'am.
minutes more than enough.
अच्छा
15 minutes is good enough. I think so.
everybody
So ठीक है मैम, students are the
Minutes are over.
ठीक है. All right guys, you win. We come back at 2 o'clock. Enjoy your break.
Thank you.